Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Monday, December 22nd, 2025, getting almost to the end of the year here. And, been doing some audio tinkering, and we may or may not have fixed things. I think I've got it to where Greg can now hear the music, which is important because the music is so wonderful. But also because it gives all of us the cues for, well, how much more time do I have to try to squeeze something in before the actual break happens? All important stuff. And if you're producing even a made-at-home show like this one, it's important to have those cues. And I think probably that's enough experience for us to go on TV at this point and produce a news show, because the news shows that are on television now don't seem to be really getting the hang of how to produce things and when to air them, and if the segment is done and you've been promoting it all day, should you air the thing? Big story for the end of the weekend. I'm sure you all saw that. You didn't see the story because they wouldn't show it on television. And but the big story is the story behind the story about why they didn't show you the big story. But there's also the big story of Friday was the deadline to, quote unquote, release, quote unquote, the Epstein Files. And something was handed around on Friday, not the entire contents of the Epstein Files. A lot of holes in that. I mean, there's no way to describe what a bad job that they did in putting these things together and putting them out, and the lack of care put into handling things properly. But as they are their own judge and jury, I suppose. You would have thought they would have over-redacted at first, but then as it turns out, they, in some cases, under-redacted because they're just plain, incompetent at what they do and really have no idea what's happening out there. I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot to get to today, and so I guess we ought to just get right to it. And then we can test whether or not during our interim prior to the show, I was able to find the echo that is haunting Greg's feed, but not mine, and we'll find out in just a second as Greg is here, along with a tub of margarine. Welcome, bearer of margarine.
Well, margarine's good.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
Whatever you did to fix the echo worked.
Good. I hit a local artisan over the head with a big foam mallet. And,
okay, well, that worked. Because what happened is that for a couple of days there, maybe for almost a full week, I couldn't hear the music that David plays, and so that's the cue that we're coming up on break, so I had to look at the clock, which I'm used to doing. David fixed that, and then this morning when I called in, I could hear my voice echoing. It wasn't because I was on speaker here and my microphone was picking it up. I'm on headphones, so it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I just heard my echo like a half a second later. And whereas David is used to ignoring me, and my family is,
so anyway,
really good. I had to learn how to do that myself, and I was struggling there, but David fixed that too.
Yeah, all right. Well, there are buttons all over the place. I still have this extraordinarily bass-heavy sound in my headphones, but I'll fix that next. Anyway, at least the words I'm saying are coming through, and only one time. We're ready to go. The words they were saying on CBS News didn't come through at all, I understand.
No. So Michael Grimbaum broke that story for the New York Times.
Yes.
And, the Times editorial, what I mean by that is Joe Kahn, who picks the stories, and the people who write the headlines, are just awful. I don't mean op-ed stories, some of which are good, some of which are not. That's always been true.
I see.
But the Times reporting itself is excellent. It's always been excellent.
Well, all right. Good job, New York Times. I think they're pretty proud of themselves.
Well, they broke this story, and they didn't, spike it.
Okay.
In a move that drew harsh criticism from its own correspondent, CBS News abruptly removed a segment from Sunday's episode of 60 Minutes that was to feature the stories of Venezuelan men deported by the Trump administration to what the program called a brutal prison in El Salvador.
What?
CBS announced it changed 3 hours before the broadcast, a highly unusual last-minute switch. The decision was made after Bari Weiss, the new editor-in-chief of CBS News, requested changes to the segment, numerous changes. CBS News said in a statement the segment would air at a later date and needed additional reporting. But Sharon Alfonsi, the veteran 60 Minutes correspondent who reported the segment, rejected that criticism in a private note to colleagues in which she accused CBS News of pulling the segment for political reasons.
No way.
And Michael Grimbaum actually got a hold of the actual memo.
All right.
So I want to read that to you.
Oh, you got a hold of it. He shared it with you.
He shared it on Twitter, which is becoming once again the go-to source for news. It's always been.
Yuck.
People on Twitter have noted that it's actually getting better. That Elon Musk is losing the community response notes game, and that
nice.
He hasn't stifled, the people who want to communicate with each other. You just got to be good at muting and blocking. But I have a Bari Weiss response to the whole thing.
Yeah.
And this is where Princess Bride comes in, because Princess Bride always comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Bari Weiss essentially said that the reason she did this is that it's not unusual for
to be loved by anyone. Yeah, sorry,
yes,
I was just having a tune.
She said that it's not unusual to hold stories or pull them back if they need more context or if we're waiting for response.
I mean, sometimes I guess,
the
but
Princess Bride.
Yeah. You think?
Liar!
I see.
Liar!
No, this never happens.
The thing.
Yeah.
Well, it happened in this case for this reason.
Ah.
Okay. And here's where Michael Grimbaum's reporting comes in.
Yes.
This is the actual letter that the correspondent, Cheryl Alfonsi, sent to her colleagues. News team, thank you for the notes and text. I apologize for not reaching out earlier. I learned on Saturday that Bari Weiss spiked our story inside CCOT, which was supposed to air tonight. We asked for a call to discuss the decision. She did not afford us that courtesy or opportunity.
Oh. Why didn't she do extra reporting?
Screened 5 times and cleared by both CBS attorneys and standards and practice. It's factually correct. In my view, pulling it now, after every rigorous internal check has been met, is not an editorial decision. It is a political one. We requested responses to questions or interviews with DHS, the White House, and the State Department. Government silence is a statement, not a veto. Their refusal to interview is a tactical maneuver designed to kill the story. If the administration's refusal to participate becomes a valid reason to spike a story, we've effectively handed them a kill switch for any reporting they find inconvenient.
Right.
That's the part where she says, Bari Weiss, you're a liar.
Yeah, I think I see what you mean now.
Yeah. If the standard for airing a story becomes the government must agree to be interviewed, then the government effectively gains control over 60 Minutes. We go from an investigative powerhouse to a stenographer for the state. Now, these men risk their lives to speak with us. We have a moral and professional obligation to the sources who entrusted us with their stories. Abandoning them now is a betrayal of the most basic tenet of journalism, giving voice to the voiceless. CBS spiked the Jeffrey Wigand interview due to legal concerns, nearly destroying the credibility of this broadcast. It took years to recover from that low point. By pulling this story to shield the administration, we are repeating that history, but for political optics, not legal ones. I forget what the Jeffrey Wigand thing was, but CBS was afraid that they were going to be sued and lose money. Lots of money.
Well, now they just do that as a matter of course. As long as the president is the one suing them, they're fine with it.
But that was a decision made by the corporation, not a decision made by the government. We have been promoting this story on social media for days, she continues. Our viewers are expecting it. When it fails to air without a credible explanation, the public will correctly identify this as corporate censorship. We are trading 50 years of gold standard reputation for a single week of political quiet. I care too much about this broadcast to watch it be dismantled without a fight. Signed, Sharon. My question, of course, is going to be, okay, since Bari Weiss is doing what our corporate masters want and therefore won't reverse, who resigns?
I'll do it.
And when I say who resigns,
yeah,
we're talking about people like Scott Pelley and Leslie Stahl. They're millionaires. They don't have to worry about making the next paycheck. They don't need this.
They could, you could call it a retirement, but you could make it a noisy retirement and make an extra point on your way out the door.
Indeed, you could. You know, we're not talking about the cameraman on the show or somebody who has to make ends meet and make Christmas
right.
affordable and so on and so forth.
Make Christmas affordable again.
Yeah, but we're talking about, the rich folks on the show. What the hell is going on with them? Why haven't they resigned?
Yeah, well, they may have spent yesterday considering that.
Yeah, well, they need to spend more time with their families, so
right.
It's a good way to do it.
Well, this is the week for it.
Right.
Kwanzaa's coming.
So I think that's like a BFD,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So this was real interesting, and I mean, I understood that there was something at the root of what Bari Weiss was saying, like, okay, well, sometimes, and things need more reporting or more context. But of course, the memo was, no, we got all of that. And that's when we ran it through the check. And 5 different times we said, no, we got everything we need. The fact that the administration hadn't commented, we asked the administration for comment and they declined. It happens all the time. You hear it all the time. And yeah, apparently Bari Weiss's idea here is, well, if they're not included in the story, then that's not enough context. But they declined to be in the story. But now that she's saying, no, you really should comment on this one because we'll give you the opportunity to say none of it is true, which is really not great for your, news service. Come on and deny everything we did. But yeah, no one ever does that. We hear that all the time. We offered them a chance to rebut our reporting and they declined to do so. That's the answer. Since when do you say, well, we'll just wait here until that's the kill switch, I guess, that you're talking about. If people just decline your invitation to comment, it holds the story until you come around to change your mind. That's never been the case.
Right.
That was pretty wild.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole idea that the CBS correspondent was telling her colleagues is that this was vetted more than the usual story.
Yes.
And this was cleared
apparently 5
by
times.
more than the usual story. And this was screened more than the usual story. And there's at least 3 different spokespeople for the White House, for State, for DHS, were all asked to comment. They refused. That cannot ever be the grounds for us pulling stories. And Weiss's excuse was that, well, we haven't done our due diligence and we have to go back and do it. Yes, that happens all the time, but that's not what happened in this case.
Yeah.
Who says so? An expert.
Yeah. The reason they cleared it 5 times and ran it through all these different filters is, I understand they are afraid of being sued. They just were.
They have to get it right. So they went out of their way to get it right and they pulled it anyway. And the lame excuse that they used is, well, we didn't get response.
Right.
Well, no, the report is actually right. That you don't get a response is a response and part of the news story.
They always say it. I mean, how much time do I waste on this show reading people's write-up of the fact that they asked people for comment and they declined? I always find it funny. I'm now wasting time telling you that the other person didn't say anything, but it's important to have on the record, I asked. That's the ass covering. I asked them and they wouldn't do it.
And there's a normal cycle to that. You say something which is really damaging to someone. They don't respond. You say more. Other people pick it up. They start talking about it. They still don't respond. Then the non-response becomes a story. Then they are forced to respond.
Yeah.
Well, you want to see that in action? Jeffrey Epstein story.
Ah, okay. By the way.
So we're not ready to talk about that yet, but we will. There's lots there. But what I'm just saying is that's the normal cycle. So the idea that, well, I didn't respond, therefore that's going to hold up the story is bullshit.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
He's a liar. Play
that's
bullshit. You want.
And there you
what
go.
do you expect me to do?
Yeah, all right.
Well, what the hell is supposed to do, you moron?
Yeah, I know. Right? We got all those.
They all fit. This is what's going on here.
I mean, that's always the thing, right? If you don't respond, we're going to put on there that you didn't respond, and then it's going to look like you don't care or you're hiding something.
Well, you're hiding something. You are hiding something. That's what we're telling you.
Well,
the whole story is about you hiding something.
That's true. Well, but
your
now it's going to look
is
like
hiding something. It's part of the story.
Yeah. That's the context you were looking for, Bari. Yeah, how do we know that Bari even said that? Maybe we should hold a story and not report that she said that.
She has a written response. So.
Oh. Well, if she doesn't go on the record talking about a written response, I'm sorry, I can't report this story.
Well,
so how lucky for her. By the way, Jeffrey Wigand, I checked in the middle. It was a tobacco industry whistleblower. So that would probably be about tobacco being not so good for you.
Yeah, but I forget the context in terms of what they pulled and why they pulled it. And they pulled it for, because eventually it aired.
Okay. Well, once everybody was had got cancer, they aired it. But when this was the warning. No, I don't know what it was. In 1995, though, I guess they were still in the middle of the big tobacco industry, multi-party, multi-state litigation. And so he was a tobacco industry whistleblower. I'm not certain exactly what. I could find it, but there's another Jeffrey that's probably more on our mind these days. The Toys R Us giraffe. It's the one that Trump had to identify in his cognitive test. That's Jeffrey the giraffe.
Yeah,
I know him.
I know him.
Sure.
Well, back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Judith Miller got canned at the New York Times for making up stories about weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
These days, none of that counts. So CBS was supposed to be the flagship news story. This is the network of Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
I'm not old enough to have watched Murrow, but I am old enough to have watched Cronkite.
Yeah, I saw that guy.
I mean, Huntley Brinkley introduced me to Beethoven.
Well, how do you like that?
A theme song for the show.
It's royalty free. Yeah, I know what's going on here. Okay. Well, long tradition. Lots. That's the great thing about CBS is that you can always point to that, and that's what was supposed to make the position prestigious for Bari Weiss, but I guess not. She still gets to say she's the head of CBS.
Yeah. Well, she's the head of CBS News. So the point is that her corporate masters, this is what they want.
Yeah.
That's why she's there.
Yeah.
And they
wasn't her news experience.
They still want Paramount to buy stuff. They still want to do the same thing to CNN. They want to buy CNN and they'll put Bari Weiss there too. Why not?
Yeah, sure. You can hold. Lots of people hold multiple jobs in the Trump administration, so maybe private sector too. There's no law against it there. Maybe better in the private sector than in public. There's another multiple job holder popped up on my radar today. I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
All right. I'm trying to figure out exactly what was that. What was the tripwire here for Jeffrey Wigand and I. Well, I can't read both.
I was trying to figure out, but it didn't come to me instantly. Let's just put it that way.
Right. Well, yeah. You can all do your own research on the internet. Now, just so long as you remember to take your vaccines afterwards. Doesn't matter what they tell you about Jeffrey Wigand. The truth is you need to be vaccinated. Don't click on any links. Don't watch any videos. Just go find about what Jeffrey Wigand and use Wikipedia. You're allowed to do that now. It used to be they tell you not to. Now you should. That's where we are. All right. Other big story of the weekend, of course. I don't know whether we want to get to it now or later, or whether there's other polls or God knows what.
The CBS stuff still has to play out.
Yeah.
So the title of my pundit roundup today is "Get Which Stories Won't Go Away." It was that CBS one, of course, but
that's one.
It's the Jeffrey Epstein story.
I thought we were done with that.
Well, they had a deadline to produce stuff. We all knew that they were going to fudge it, but we didn't know how. And then what happened is they released some stuff heavily redacted, and then they sent Todd Blanche, their pettifogger lawyer, onto the TV shows.
Hello, I'm on TV.
To say, well, we're complying. We're doing exactly what they said. We have to protect victims, so we're releasing it little by little as we go through it. And Thomas Massey, who wrote the law, said, that's not
you can
what
go
I
ahead.
wrote. That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. Oh, well, we got that one, too. Oh, where's that one? There we go.
That is not how this works!
That's right. You heard it.
So, he said, look, the truth is these are not very bright guys, and things got out of hand. I'm sorry, that was Mark Felt. That wasn't Massey. But he said basically the same thing. The law is clear. They're violating the law. I'll give you examples. And, at some point, these guys are going to go to jail for this.
That's right. It's in black and white. It's all there.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
I could just do the whole show this way. Yeah. Thomas Massie on Face the Nation. By the way, for a real throwback on Daily Coast days, I happened to see a clip of him being asked, so what are you going to do to force the DOJ to comply with, as you know, the discharged and then passed Epstein Transparency Act? I forget what they called it, actually. But forcing this deadline. And remember, they were so thorough.
Officially, it's the Jeffrey Epstein Ballroom Act, I believe.
And, they were trying to be very thorough. All the materials have to release except the names or identifying material about the victims. And then, of course, I suppose, first, the administration fudged a little bit around, well, what do you mean by victim? Because isn't Donald Trump the real victim here?
And all his millionaire buddies. Yeah,
these guys are the ones who are going to suffer if this stuff comes out. So they actually redacted most of that material. Then they missed a couple of spots where they were actually supposed to be redacting the names of the girl victims of Jeffrey Epstein's predations and let some of those go through. But then they asked Massie, so what are you going to do about this? And interestingly, for those who go way back with us at Daily Coast, and I mean like 20 years back, the quickest and most expeditious way, Massie answers, to get justice for these victims is to bring inherent contempt against Pam Bondi.
Indeed.
So I was pleased to see that there's somebody who remembered this.
Is there a jail cell at the bottom of the Capitol?
No. However, construction funds are flowing. We could probably get a corporate sponsor for a jail cell down there.
Well, it was in the East Wing, but it's gone now.
Yeah. They now
That's where the turkey chamber was.
Would use the D.C. municipal jail to hold somebody like this. But, we went through this inherent contempt fit About 20 years ago. I dug up the old story. It was from March of 2007 when we were having, let's say, great difficulty. Congress was having difficulty getting answers out of the George W. Bush administration. And this goes way back, and we could talk about the background, and it'll be seeded in and out the show for the next week, I'm sure. But it was just really something to see him talk about inherent contempt. And what it reminded me of mostly was, A, having written extensively about inherent contempt, and B, how we discovered in the course of doing so that the members of Congress who are, supposed to know that this thing exists, not every member will know, but the head of the Government Oversight Committee, for instance, was just like with the nuclear option. Not only do I not know about it, but that's impossible. It doesn't really work that way. You're making things up. That's not very nice, very cute, kid, but that's not actually a real thing. It is, and your grandparents knew about it, but you didn't. And it's amazing to think that they don't know what tools they have. So it's nice that Thomas Massie has some idea.
Right. Well, we'll talk about it a little more after the break. It's
sure.
Coming up imminently, but in a few
No,
minutes.
you'll hear music.
Let's go back to the New York Times. The same
right.
Excellent reporting.
Hello, New York.
Epstein Files photos disappear from government website, including one of Trump. Yes. A total of 16 photos were taken down at some point on Saturday from the website that the Justice Department created. One featured an open drawer containing other photos, including at least one of President Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the claim
an old one, too.
From the Justice Department is, if you look in that drawer, you can see pictures of girls, and those girls may be victims, and therefore we should pull the photo. And Massie said, you had months to do this.
Right.
The law says the deadline is Friday. You don't get to say, I'm handing it in late. You have to give me another 3 weeks because I didn't finish.
Yes. The DOJ is still in college, and they're getting extensions, and it's really getting ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sometimes these professors are too lenient.
Right. The Justice Department did not explain on the site why the images had been removed, but Todd Blanche went on TV to explain why they had been removed. To which Thomas Massie said, well, that's bullshit.
Well, maybe that's why the DOJ wasn't available to comment on the 60 Minutes story. They were on TV commenting on the Jeffrey Epstein story. Too busy.
It has nothing to do with President Trump, Mr. Blanche said on NBC's Meet the Press. The absurdity of pulling down a single photo because of President Trump is laughable. And yet.
Yeah.
And yet.
There it is.
Roger Sollenberger. has a piece here. On the left, an Epstein document in the DOJ released in 2024 with Trump's name and others. It's still up on the DOJ website.
Yeah.
On the right, the same document, DOJ redacted it further, taking Trump's name out.
Come on. Wow. That's it?
Their excuse is, well, it's not exactly the same. It could have been. Mm-hmm. This isn't really an argument. It's possible. I'm simply naysaying you. No, see, it could have been a different document. And we just released everything, and there were several versions of the document, and this one was one version. And we weren't consistent with how we did this, and so it's not our fault. Don't blame us. We're not deliberately trying to do this. Of course, we know Trump's name appears in the documents because the one that was originally redacted in 2024 has his name.
Yeah, it does.
Which doesn't explain why, when you use the search function, Trump's name doesn't appear at all. So let's go back to those other clips.
Hey, wait a second.
Liar!
Right.
That's not how it works.
Oh, my God. Well, we got plenty.
What do you expect me to do, you moron? I mean, all of those things apply here.
Yeah. We're almost out of time to play all of those things. But, just about anything can probably be worked in at this point. I don't know if they're
lying.
I don't know about your vaccine things.
They're caught lying.
Yeah. Oh, right. I don't know if I have anything special for actually being caught, but wow. I mean, there's an awful lot, and I really was surprised to see them pulling down pictures over the weekend, which was kind of amazing. I almost can, I mean, if they weren't such liars about everything else, I would maybe credit, okay, I could see where you've been through several incarnations of this same document, and you're like, well, this is the document as we presented it in March, but this is the document as we presented it in May, and they're now two different documents. But holy cow.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Net Roots Radio. Yeah, we talked all the way through the break. There was a lot to talk about. The Epstein Files release was a sham as expected, I guess. We didn't have to wait for extra comment on that one. We were ready to run this story by Friday. And then, so the sport on Friday was, how ridiculous is this release? It's tiny fraction of it. A few
Saturday Night Live covered it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't think I saw it. And I haven't even seen the clip.
You got to watch the cold open. It was about other stuff, but
really?
Trump giving a Christmas monologue with the version of the Christmas decorations you like so much.
Oh yeah.
With a reference to Melania, but in that. They threw out, and by the way, in Nothing Burger, we released these, all of the Epstein files, and then they had, as backdrop, they brought it up to blow up on the screen, and they had a picture of a document, everything blacked out except for across the full-page document, 5 words, Trump didn't do nothing wrong. Those are the only things that were released, and that's about right. Thomas Massey, on Inside Politics, CNN said Trump's administration is not even close to complying with the Epstein law. He would know. He wrote the law. Yeah. Not only are they trying to create an exemption that doesn't exist in our law, they're expressly ignoring the requirement to provide these materials.
Yeah. I mean, that was the point of the law.
Yeah.
He got it right. And then, I guess we all knew that they would over-redact things. What I was amazed by was the occasional under-redaction. And They really fudged just like the methodology of disclosure. I guess my favorite one was that they had videotaped testimony from victims, or I don't know whether they were depositions. I don't know what form the actual interviews took, but interviews with victims describing very clearly what happened to them. They were making allegations. They wanted him charged with crimes based on their recounting of what happened, and they videotaped these things. And the DOJ version of releasing the Epstein Files on that, where now grown women were sitting down recounting what happened to them as teenagers, is they took pictures of the videotapes and then said, voila, here it is. Here's a photo of the videotape on
we've
which
done our duty,
there's
we're done.
testimony.
To see here.
Yeah, and it's not a transcript. Didn't come with it, and they redacted the transcript. It's just, here you go. We were holding on to these things. We looked in the files, and this is what was there. I don't know. It doesn't say anything as far as I can tell. So I don't know. It just says, there's a label here that says evidence number 9 or whatever. And
right. I mentioned that Twitter was getting better. I want to give you an example.
I don't believe you. Wait a minute.
U.S. Department of Justice.
Yeah.
Tweeted this. Redactions were applied to these documents when they were filed in their respective court cases back in the day. We reproduced the documents as we had them in our possession. And that's their answer to how come some of them redacted Trump's name and some didn't.
I see. Well,
readers add context. Community
yes.
note from Twitter.
All right.
This tweet by the DOJ is inaccurate. The documents were previously released by the DOJ without redacting references to President Trump, as can be seen here. Do you find this helpful? So these readers added context stuff is all over Twitter these days. They're not taking it down. It's usually accurate to call out the jerks who are trying to claim that this is, in a lawyerly fashion. Well, you have to understand there's 17 different documents, and you're only looking at 2 of them. We have another 15 here, and they're all over the place. And stop accusing. Well, where are the other 15? Show them.
Yeah, how come you didn't release them? That's the interesting part. So, I mean, it raises the question: does anybody have these things unredacted? If you're just saying, well, these were redacted in 2009 and we filed them, but
I'll tell you what, why don't you give the unredacted stuff to the Democrats in the House committees
you should do that.
That are looking at this?
Oh, I don't know.
Right? Maybe if you're worried about being public, just do it privately and show them and see what they have to say about it.
Okay.
Now, this, I think, was worth noting just because it's Julie K. Brown. Julie K. Brown is the reporter who broke the original story back in the Miami Herald, something of a subject matter expert.
Yeah.
This is the one I read a couple of weeks ago about how there's like 10 different Epstein files, depending upon what you're looking at.
Yeah, you've been reading her for years on this.
For years. And the more that happens, the more she's verified in terms of what she's saying.
Yeah.
So what she writes on her Substack, pages and pages of blacked out documents, photographs of Epstein's mop closet and HVAC systems, message pads, notes, and other material from the Florida case that has been on the Palm Beach County State Attorney's website since 2018. They didn't even release the victim interviews, just pictures of the tapes of the interviews. Think about that.
That's
a photograph
insane.
of a tape cassette. This would be funny if it weren't about a crime involving the rapes of 14-year-old girls. It's clear that the Department of Justice is not only thumbing its nose at the public's demand for transparency and accountability, it's not taking the crimes committed against children seriously. It's as if they think we're so hungry for any crumb about Epstein's stale bread will do. What's worse is that the documents and photos they did release were tossed up like a salad and served in such a mixed-up way that few people will understand the significance of the material. Mm-hmm. Imagine being a survivor who was raped by Epstein and having to click one photo at a time through hundreds of photographs, just searching for something to explain how Jeffrey Epstein did what he did, hoping for some shred of hope that the FBI actually investigated your complaint. It turned that's part of the problem. Even victim Maria Farmer, who found some validation in the fact that her 1996 FBI report about Epstein was tucked in the mess. She reported it. They ignored it. They never investigated it.
Yeah.
Then people called her a liar and said, you never reported it. In these files is validation that she did report it. She's not a liar, but still nothing was done about it. That's a different story altogether.
Well,
have they taken some steps? They may have prevented the sexual assaults of countless other girls and young women. And what about Epstein's clients? Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, said there was no list, but Tom Massey has said he knows of 20 men who have been implicated in Epstein crimes. What about Ghislaine Maxwell? Well, she filed a habeas corpus petition a few days ago that claims that 25 men arranged civil settlements with Epstein. That's something that Julie K. Brown had said. There's the Epstein files, but I know personally of other settlements that have been made that are not public, she said. This validates that.
Yeah. It's extraordinarily discouraging, I'm sure, right, to find out in other cases, people who say there's nothing in here. It's like they totally ignored my report, which I guess they did, and that they keep doing this is really rather amazing. And I mean, even I don't know. I guess you could try the old excuse of, well, 1996, back in those days, the unenlightened days before we understood what this really meant. Everybody was involved in one of these things. But they still do this. It reminded me most of the Kavanaugh tip line, right? Yeah,
yes,
your tips. The FBI has a real problem with the I part in all of this.
Right. I'm sending you a 35-second clip I'd like you to play.
All right. How long does it take to get here?
Bottom, right under Julie K. Brown's piece.
Marco Foster.
Marina Lacerda, Epstein survivor. And what she has to say in regard to reacting to all this.
Oh boy, okay, hold on a second here. All right, let's see. We'll have to
it's
pause.
From MS Now.
Turn it. Short. Yeah, I forget what. I no longer know what I'm looking at. MS Now, but MSNBC that changed the BC into OW, I guess.
Yeah.
so that's really it. All right. So this is Maria Lacerda being interviewed. Marina. I'm sorry. Okay. Let's hear it.
Do you believe that you are somewhere on this page, somewhere on these pages?
I would think so, absolutely. I was the first victim they reached in New York. So I would think that my deposition is there. I mean, I was questioned pretty heavy. So I think that somewhere along the lines, with all this distraction from yesterday on the 19th, I think President Trump thought he was going to get away with it. But we can clearly see that still, he is trying to protect himself and other important people in his life.
Interesting the way she refers to him. I think that Donald, the person now known as President Trump, I knew him as Donald. I knew him as No Pants Donald. So, whatever. But I realize I can't talk about him that way. Well. No surprise. Certainly no surprise.
My point here is if you think this story's going away, Friday's document dump wasn't the way to do it.
No, but they haven't been able to handle this thing at all. And you knew it was going to continue. And the redactions in some cases are so ridiculous. Entire pages, I noticed, is another one, along with a good post here on Blue Sky where Schooley, who we all follow and know and love, posting one of those full page redactions. I don't know why they don't just do it in one big block, but they do it line by line. And noting, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Just that line from that weirdo birthday book. Also interesting things. I don't know why they didn't redact this entire page. Sometimes I'm curious about why they do this to themselves. One of those old phone memo pages, you remember those, where before we had voicemail and there was the important message. You would write down who the call was for, what time did it come in, and who's calling, and what's the message, and what do they want you to do, what actions you take. But a important message from one of those things for Mr. J.E. I don't know who that might be. They're really okay. However, it is a call from redacted, but now of course we all know who's being redacted out of this thing. And the message is, quote, "I have a female for him," which is super gross, top to bottom, but amazing. They blacked it out, and you're not supposed to be able to guess that it is, Donald Trump has called him. So,
again, Bob Woodward, Carl Bernstein, All the President's Men, the movie, and I quote, about the White House, the truth is these are not very bright guys.
Yeah, that's all it comes down to. Sorry, folks. They just really don't know what they're doing. And they think they can get away with it. And I guess it helps if the entire Department of Justice works for you and is afraid of crossing you at any point. And they're willing to go on television and say, no, there's a legal precedent for this. No, there isn't. We actually checked. Well, the point is we thought there was, and there might be one later.
I just thought I'd point out Ehrlichman, Haldeman, John Mitchell, Jed Magruder. These guys all went to jail.
Yeah. Maybe that time is over with. I don't know. I hope not.
But Massey said it's coming. It may not happen right now because of who's running DOJ.
Yeah.
But it exposes them. It's just so clear what's going on.
Well, they were exposing themselves.
I understand
the
that
whole
most
time.
people don't care about that, but the economy's so bad that it's the same thing.
Yeah, well,
throw the bums out. What difference does it make? If you can't get Capone for murder, get him for tax evasion. It's not as satisfying, but you're still in jail.
As long as you get there, yeah.
Yeah. So other stories are going on besides those. Those are the big ones, I think.
Get out of here.
This one is from the Bulwark. Mike Johnson, Speaker irrelevant.
Okay. Oh, you mean, all right. Yes, he is.
And, they talk about how business of the House, of course, everybody's gone for the holidays, but business in the House is basically done by discharge petition these days. And there's a whole bunch.
There's more?
There's more.
Okay.
So what they say is, call it a holiday miracle if you must, but the last days of 2025 have seen multiple instances of bipartisan cooperation in the House.
What do you know?
And it's not just cases of well-adjusted moderates and party brass making difficult compromises to avoid catastrophe. Instead, it's aggressive procedural rules gaming by a variety of members to circumvent House leadership through the use of discharge petitions.
Yeah.
I'm so glad we covered this at length over the years.
Sure.
Because, who knew? But we didn't know, but there it is. At least we have a pretty good idea of what's going on here.
Yeah.
The increasing frequency of these end runs around leadership is a forceful demonstration of just how sick and tired rank-and-file Democrats and Republicans are at trying to work in a chamber run by an obsequious speaker who, they should have said squeaker there, who sees his role as doing the bidding of a power-hungry White House. To understand how big a middle finger the discharge petitions are to Mike Johnson, you first must understand they were vanishingly rare before this Congress.
The success of them, certainly, yes.
Yeah. I filed several, said Brian Fitzpatrick. I have a shell that I'm going to use for Russia sanctions. When he says shell, he's talking about the Lorem Ipsum bills that, you can't really figure out what's going on, but they're there. But I have a shell for Russia sanctions. I did this one with Jared Golden on collective bargaining. I've discharged the Let America Vote Act, which is independents voting in primaries. I've discharged a bill preserving the filibuster. But I really wish these bills would just come to the floor on their own. It shouldn't take a discharge petition. Leadership should be putting these bills on the floor when there's that much support for it. A discharge is really forcing rank-and-file members to take matters into their own hands. A reminder, last time I looked at the House Clerk's page, there were 13 of them, some of which have been enacted. But there's a bunch floating out there.
I guess so.
And
yeah,
remember,
I don't know.
Marjorie Taylor Greene promised
to
sign off on all of them, except she's gone now.
Yeah, right. So I don't know whether she delivered on that or not, but I'll take a look.
I know you've done this, and I know, but my mind is like a sieve, and I can't remember anything. At some point, you've talked about motions to commit or recommit.
Recommit, yeah.
But you're going to have to go over call the previous question, because that's the other tool that's going to come up that Democrats are going to use to try to, force stuff through.
Yes. At the end of, you all know, I think, remember when the rules for debate are set by the adoption of a special rule with each bill, right? We're going to debate this bill for 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, whatever length of time, and what amendments will and won't be allowed. Sometimes they control it, sometimes they don't. But there's always a rule that comes with it. The usual practice is that there's always a rule.
There's a rule first to how to vote on the bill, and the rule has to go through committee and pass. Then it has to go to the floor and pass.
Yes.
And then you get to vote on the bill. So
right.
It's a three-step process.
All of that happens, and then at the very end, the last step of things, as we've learned over the years, like for instance, the Senate can filibuster bills. There's no filibuster in the House. Why do we say that? Now this gets at the why. No one asks why. I don't know, because the Senate has it and the House doesn't. Why doesn't the House have it? The House does have it. The House deals with it by saying, at the end of the debate, there'll be a motion on the previous question. And what is that? The motion is basically the House will now vote on whether or not the next thing we vote on will be passage of this bill or not. if it doesn't pass, debate on the bill doesn't close, despite the rule. And you have an opportunity to change the nature of the thing, opening it back up to more amendments. You can table the bill, you can kill the bill, you can do all sorts of things with it. But it's a mechanism of control that because the House is a majoritarian body and the Senate is, operates with supermajorities, that's the difference between the two types of filibuster. It takes 2/3, or whatever, 3/5 to stop it in the Senate, mere majority in the House. But as a matter of course, because there's party discipline, they say at the end of the debate, you shut up and vote with your majority and vote that, yes, the previous question, the one we were just debating, is now the pending question. So yes or no.
So when you say I call the previous question or whatever the exact wordage is, you're basically saying the majority party wants you to vote yes.
Yes, exactly.
And if you vote no and no wins, debate is not closed.
Right. It's in effect, essentially a House filibuster has happened. Even though all you need is a bare majority to close it, they've refused to do so. You no longer control a majority in the House, and the floor goes wild. Normally, and they have ways of dealing with it, like, look what time it is. We're in adjournment. All
right. So the discharge petition is a way for the minority to force bills onto the floor that the Speaker doesn't want. Calling the previous question and then rejecting as a no is a way to force the House to filibuster, in effect.
Yeah, or at least
those are the two tools
debate
that the
open.
Minority can theoretically use to flummox the majority.
It's a tool usually used by the minority, but it never works until you get an actual working majority. You have to reach across the aisle to find somebody, but if you can find the 2, 3, 5, 15 you need, exactly, it's the same thing. And that's why, that's the flip side of the House saying, well, we only work by bare majority. We don't have any supermajority requirements. But if you can't hold your party line together, especially when you have a narrow majority, if a majority of members of the House say, I don't care what party I'm from or what your party you're from, we want this to happen, it happens. So, we don't see it happening usually because in normal times, a speaker, one, has been elected speaker with the support of a majority of that conference or caucus. That's not the case here. They were split on whether or not Johnson should be the guy. But then eventually they said, all right, for the sake of running the place, we'll settle on him. But I never liked him. Well, that's why you're a weak speaker. You got to have a solid majority that is going to do what you say when you say it, or else you get in this position.
Right. So Bulwark goes on to say, the Epstein bill got over the finish line thanks to far-right members, especially dissident Republican women, holding their ground against Trump. The collective bargaining bill passed thanks to GOP moderates allying with Democrats. Those special elections where Democrats won are forcing Republican moderates to come to terms with the fact that they're going to lose the majority, and they're desperately trying to hold on, and that's the purpose of allying with Democrats, even though they don't want to. And when I say they don't want to, you could see that in the health care discharge petition that passed. It was Hakeem Jeffries' health care petition that passed with a 3-year extension. Ryan Fitzpatrick, head of the problem solvers in the group of dissident moderates on the Republican side, offered a 1 or a 2-year. They would have preferred that, and Hakeem Jeffries brilliantly played them and said, we're giving you 3 years and that's your only choice. I'm holding my Democrats back from signing on the 1 year and the 2 year. And so 3 years, the only vehicle that has enough to pass, and you have to have something to pass. And Fitzpatrick said, this sucks, and the only alternative is not having anything pass, and that sucks more, so okay, I'm on. And Jeffries won that strategic move. So now the House hopper, they say, Bulwark, is filling up with additional discharge petitions. One would force a vote on banning stock trading by Anna Paulina Luna, has 67 signatures. Now Hakeem Jeffries, I would add, is offering his own, and that may be the vehicle to get it done. Some Democrats haven't signed on because they remain opposed to it. Others are holding off because they want additional restrictions for officials in the executive branch. In other words, a lot of the Republican discharge petitions do not allow for amendments. Democrat
Right.
alternatives do. And so if Hakeem Jeffries wants those amendments, then he goes with his own bill, even if it's almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Important.
A Ukraine aid discharge petition has 215 signatures, including that of Don Bacon. 3 more will be sufficient to force a vote. Democratic-led proposal to extend Affordable Care Act for 3 years got the support it needed. By the very nature, discharge petitions are acts of defiance. If Johnson truly wanted to, he could make it less likely they'd be used by simply allowing normal votes, but he won't.
Yeah.
Because they're still beholden to their, quote, Hastert rule, end quote. I think Hastert alone should have quotes about scare quotes about it.
Yeah, he might not really be Hastert.
Hastert rule. So-called.
So-called.
Yeah. Which provides that only bills with support from the majority and the majority ever see the floor. That's just like the dumbest rule ever. I don't understand why they are so beholden to it. While many in the party would be eager to operate according to that broad principle, Johnson's narrowed the window of viability by prioritizing the agenda of the White House and GOP leadership while leaving the concerns of the rank and file unaddressed. Capitol Hill staffers I've spoken to for this article on both sides of the aisle are predicting more discharge petitions will make it to the floor in the coming months. And Republican potential attendance problems in the new year could make it harder to stop the rebel lawmakers from emerging victorious. Provided they can get some of their Democratic colleagues on board with their proposals, dissident Republicans should have an easy path to getting votes on their priorities, whether Johnson wants it or not. So that's what's to look forward to. And I said the other day that they call this article, Mike Johnson, Speaker Irrelevant. There's no question he's lost control of the House. We knew that when he lost control of the Speakers Committee, but now...
he never had it.
He never had it, but he ceded that to the arch conservatives like Chip Roy. Now it's the moderates who are finally, after all our bitching and moaning about the fact that they have the power to do this.
Remember my moaning? Right. Well, it's a good thing to see them doing it. I was going to say, this is, I guess, another great illustration of the difference between somebody who has the confidence and control of their caucus conference and someone who doesn't. We just said, okay, look, wherever you have a majority that really absolutely wants to have something happen, despite all the obstacles that the leadership can throw in your way, they find a way to make it work. Yes, sometimes. Probably there was a larger majority who would have been willing to sign on to supporting a 1 or perhaps 2 year extension of the Affordable Care Act subsidies. Everybody would have gone for that. You would have had more Republicans willing to sign on, let's say, if it had been 1 year or 2 years. But and the reason they were willing to sign on was because their leader doesn't have control over them, because they their leader never had their support to begin with. Over on the other side, where people have their differences, but the Democrats have understood that as a caucus, particularly as a minority caucus, requires their sticking together and throwing their support behind one leader. They went and did that, and they managed to say, all right, well, if I crack the whip with my members and say, no, don't sign on to one of those 2 petitions with 1 and 2, even though probably there would be 300 votes for that, don't sign it. Our power is in withholding the numbers they need to get their discharge petitions over the line, and we're going to leverage the same power here. If the Democratic caucus was, we never voted for you in the first place, we didn't want you to be our leader, we never agreed to this whole thing, then he wouldn't have been able to do that. And that's what's happening on the Johnson side. He's lost, as you mentioned, he's lost control of the Speakers Committee, but that was because it was never handed over to him. But that was because Kevin McCarthy gave it away in order to make himself Speaker, and then it didn't even last 10 seconds. But Johnson inherited a Speakers Committee that wasn't a Speakers Committee, and he never had this control. And then he made it worse, right, by never having their confidence. And then eventually they got fed up. They would have gotten fed up with Kevin McCarthy and done this to him instead, but he had to leave. They kicked him out. So they handed half control of the Republican conference to Johnson, and he did nothing with it and lost part of the half he had. That guy sucks. Meanwhile, by the way, I see no discharge petition from Bacon at all. It may just be that because they're in holiday recess, they haven't updated the clerk's page. I'm sure people are circulating things, but now we can't check whether or not Marjorie Taylor Greene signed them on their way out the door or not, because they're not here. We're stuck with the same 13 we had before. So
we only have about a minute left. But I have to mention this more local story.
All right.
That is to say, Governor of New York,
Who?
Kathy Hochul.
Oh, yeah, her.
She did something. She repealed a rule, which is essentially a law, allowing new customers free gas hookups. Now, this sounds a little parochial, but here's what's going on here. There's a decades-old provision that raises gas bills for millions of New Yorkers, and here's how it works. If a new customer comes on, the gas company, if you are within 100 feet of an existing gas line, will hook you up for free.
Okay.
Nothing is free. The people who pay for that hookup is everybody else.
Oh, all right.
So Kathy Hochul repealed the rule that required utilities to do this. It's simply unfair, she said, especially when so many people are struggling right now to expect existing utility ratepayers to foot the bill for a gas hookup at a brand new house you don't own. Here's the kicker. I have made, and I'm going to bold this with my voice, affordability a top priority, and doing away with this 40-year-old subsidy that has outlived its purpose. And so now you can use solar, and you don't have to pay for somebody else's gas.
Oh, okay. All right. I was wondering where I was going to. Like, okay, I don't mind splitting the bill necessarily, although if you build 100 new homes and then you pocket all the money. Right.
Point being, somebody got the memo about affordability. It wasn't Elise Stefanik who dropped out.
Yeah.
And Michael Garcia notes, has any Democrat in the nation seen their fortunes change as much as Kathy Hochul? At the DNC, when nobody clapped for her, Pelosi blamed her for losing the House. Now she's battled Trump, got goodwill from the left after endorsing Mamdani, and her main opponent, Stefanik, has just dropped out of the race.
Well, that's the reason you put a finger to the wind, guys.
That's what it means to be responsive to your constituents.
Yeah, I mean, I know it seems cheap, but we want this to happen.
Negative spin, same thing, finger to the wind, responding to your constituents. Go with the times here.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We packed it all in there. I don't know whether we got cut off. We packed a hell of a lot in there, and we'll see what we can, whether we can make any room for any of the closing statements when we're dealing with the edit for the podcast. But in the meantime, interesting story. And a great illustration once again. We talked about it a little bit more in the break too, right? Everybody's tired of these politicians who constantly have a finger to the wind and are just but if you're the wind, this is what you want to happen versus not listening, not taking the pulse of the public, not following the prevailing winds. It's certainly true that there will be people who will listen to you earlier, who don't have to go through this transition period where they're not listening to you, and then learn from, whatever it is, election results, special election results, whatever, the headlines of the day, people who will be more responsive or will be ahead of the game in some cases, behind the times in others. But it's not such an evil thing, for them to have a finger to the wind. If they don't put a finger to the wind, people get angry with them and replace them. If they do have a finger to the wind, people might say, I know somebody who's more responsive, but they may also say, most of us got what we want out of this thing. And we don't need to switch horses midstream, perhaps they might say. It's not always weakness. And I guess there's your framing response, right? Well, she's just one of those politicians that will go whichever way the wind blows. Well, that seems bad, but it's better than one who says, F you and F the wind, I'm going to do what I want, and without the ability to make people go with him. You have a Mike Johnson situation. He's not changing directions based on the way the wind blows and then losing votes along the way. So, two models to choose from there, and do your best to figure out which one is good for you, I guess. All right, let's see. I gotta kill off a couple of things that are getting in the way of my viewing of the day's news, and make sure, for some reason I've somewhere along the line Google switched which is my default view of my inbox here, from the one where you might be trying to contact me to the one where you definitely won't be contacting me. So, all right, just making sure that I got some of these things. And time now, I guess, to turn over to other things that I may have had parked in Instapaper over the weekend, and a few things that happened just before getting on the air that I thought might be of some interest. I mentioned to you earlier on that there were a couple of people doing multiple jobs under the Trump administration. We have another entrant into this, but oddly, one that'll have some legal trouble, I think, with this one. I just happened to notice this one. Thought it would be funny to add to the pile here. Andy Craig was the one who put it up for us on Blue Sky. Andy Craig from theunpopulist.net, election law and policy being a specialty for Andy. And I don't know if there's more to this story. I've opened the thing and there's nothing ahead of it here, but I guess he goes on. He's grabbed a Blue Sky post from Matt Novak. Matt Novak, in turn, a reporter at Gizmodo, who, and at the moment anyway, was in the mode of, a lot of people do this, screenshotting something Donald Trump had said on Truth Social and punishing us all for not being on Truth Social by bringing it to the little havens that we've built for ourselves elsewhere and publishing it there so that you know what Donald Trump is up to. There's a value to this, but it is kind of an annoying thing. Donald J. Trump on Truth Social has this to say: I am pleased to announce that I'm appointing the great Governor of Louisiana, Jeff Landry, as the United States Special Envoy to Greenland. Everyone remembers Greenland, yes? The large island that really belongs to us, but also doesn't. But also Denmark will give to us, but we might buy, or we might have a war about it, or we might have an election there where they get to vote who they're going to be with. But if they vote to be anywhere else, we'll freaking kill them. You get the idea. Anyway, there's now going to be a special envoy to Greenland, and it's Jeff Landry, governor of Louisiana. Is this a problem? Is it? We'll find out. What is Donald has more to say about him. Jeff understands how essential Greenland is to our national security, which is obvious. Duh. Of course, from Louisiana. What else could you possibly be looking at day in, day out? He understands the strategic importance of Greenland because he's right there at the opposite freaking end of this country, having virtually nothing whatsoever to do with Greenland. Why is he understanding of it? Why does Trump view him as understanding? Because Landry has said in the past, Donald Trump says we should annex Greenland. I love Donald Trump. I'm hesitant to disagree with him, so sure, we should annex Greenland. Oh, okay, you're a Greenland expert then. No, I'm just an expert in saying I understand that if Donald Trump says something and I want to accrue more power, I should say it's a great thing. So there you are. Jeff understands how essential Greenland is to our national security and will strongly advance our country's interests for the safety, security, and survival of our allies. This is now going to be an acronym because he capitalizes safety, security, survival. S is the acronym for this. It's a terrible acronym. You can't tell what's going on. He will strongly advance our country's interests for the safety, security, and survival of our allies, like Denmark, from whom we're taking the island, and indeed the world. Congratulations, Jeff. And I guess Jeff says, thank you very much. I appreciate the congratulations. Matt Novak, then grabbing that, says, hey, Trump says he's appointing Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry as special envoy to Greenland. Landry has previously expressed support for Trump's plan to invade Greenland, not just to annex it, but to actually invade it. And that seems odd, right? What might seem odd to you about it? Well, as Andy Craig then reports, Landry rushed to clarify, hey, by the way, I'm not resigning as governor of Louisiana. I didn't ask to be this. I don't know whether he did or he didn't, but But this is like an interesting thing here. Like Trump, once again, had no understanding of anything, no paperwork being done here. I want to turn my attention back to Greenland for some reason. Denmark is still not selling me this thing. I'm not doing anything more aggressive, but I'm going to send a special envoy to Greenland, which is not an independent nation. And so therefore, I guess we don't have an embassy there. We have a consulate, I suppose. But I'm going to send a guy who, is on board with the whole invasion idea. And this is, I guess, part and parcel of another move that happened over the weekend. Did I put this one away? I don't think I did, because I saw the news on it last night, and I thought about parking it in Instapaper. And now I guess I regret that I didn't, but it was probably CNN, just reporting that over the weekend, Trump was recalling some 30 or so ambassadors internationally, and whoever the highest ranking official is in these various countries who are representing the United States. I didn't put it away. I mean, it's news because it's December, and by which I mean normally at the start of the new administration, lots of people are replaced. It's kind of a matter of course, but I guess 1 year into it, it was somewhat newsworthy, one, because of the number of countries involved, that it was, doing this all at once. But I guess these people figured that they had positioned themselves neutrally enough, I suppose, that they weren't purged in the first round or even the second round of replacements that normally come when a new administration comes in. You expect. And in fact, most of the ambassadors, just sort of as a matter of course, offer their resignations to the new president to give him the opportunity to install people of their choice. And I guess these guys didn't have their resignations accepted in the first round, so maybe they thought they were safe, or maybe they were just waiting for the axe to fall. And now the axe has fallen. So some 30 of them. But in addition, we're going to have a new special envoy. I don't know if there was an old special envoy to Greenland, but as Andy's pointing out here, one of the weird things about this is, one, he said, hey, I'm not resigning as governor of Louisiana, because people down in Louisiana were probably like, ooh, special election for the governor's office, a gubernatorial special election coming soon, because the governor is going to be special envoy to Greenland. And the governor's saying, he's not saying, no, I'm not going to be special envoy to Greenland. I love that. But I'm also not resigning as governor of Louisiana. So that might lead you to the question, can you do that? And the answer is, it is 2025. Donald Trump is president. I don't know if there's such a question anymore. What are you talking about? When you ask me, can I do that? What do you mean? I don't even understand anymore. Well, I mean, is it permissible by law or the Constitution? Oh, no. But do you want to do it anyway? Yeah, I have sound effects for this. Can I do this? Is this permitted under the Constitution?
No.
Well, if I want to do it, can I do it anyway?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that seems to be the answer we're looking for here. Is there any further investigation into this that's necessary? Because it seems like that is not how this works. But you're right, it isn't. The state constitution, Louisiana's state constitution, explicitly bans state office holders from simultaneously holding any federal office. And I'm pretty sure that the federal constitution kind of prohibits anybody from holding other federal offices at the same time, but certainly any other state office. You got to be focused on one or the other. So I think that that poses a pretty serious problem. Andy goes on to say that, as Governor Landry says, he grabs his response. Thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you to @Real Donald Trump, I guess, on Truth Social. It's an honor to serve you in this volunteer position to make Greenland a part of the U.S. I mean, okay. This in no way affects my position as governor of Louisiana, he says, exclamation point. Although as Andy Craig points out, hey, volunteer position is the most lawyerly worked over description they could come up with to make it sound as far as possible from being an office. This is where you would start getting into trouble. Are you accepting an office under the United States? Yes. Then the state of Louisiana's constitution says you can't be governor anymore. Okay, well, then I'm not. You're turning it down? No, I'm taking it. I'm just not, it's not an office that I'm taking. It's a volunteer position, like, being president of the Moose Lodge or doing candy striper stuff at the hospital or, right. That's what we're talking about. The invasion thing, special envoy, it's all volunteer. That is to say, nobody's paying me for it. Well, that's your problem. I mean, this is a federal office, guy. Andy goes on to say here, decent chance this is happening because Landry had some FaceTime and was making awkward small talk and made some tongue-in-cheek reference to it being like the Louisiana Purchase. And I guess that's probably it. Maybe he found himself at dinner at Pervalago and said, yeah, I support you with the invasion thing. Sure, that's funny. It's like, why? Right. We were saying, what interest has Louisiana got in any of this? And so it might just be that, well, there was the Louisiana Purchase, so there can be the Greenland Purchase as well. Oh, you understand this situation very well. You have a special interest. Maybe you want to be a special envoy. Oh, thank you, Mr. President. That would be funny. But, anyway, you don't have to refer to the Louisiana Purchase, by the way, to find the precedent for buying Greenland from Denmark. Unfortunately, the sad truth is we've done this before. We have bought islands in the vicinity of the United States, mainland, from Denmark before. It hasn't worked out all that well necessarily if you are following the news, let's say. I mean, it's a nice place. But the Virgin Islands, the U.S. Virgin Islands, were originally Danish possessions, and we bought them from Denmark, just outright purchased them, and made them U.S. territory, which I say it hasn't worked out well. I mean this. Beautiful place. Love having the Virgin Islands as part of the United States. It's a fantastic thing. It's a great escape, a great getaway. But I will say this. The last time Denmark sold us some islands, it took a while to get to this point, but Jeffrey Epstein decided to make it his pervert haven. Well, some small part of it, right? In other words, what's it? I forget what the hell the name of the Little St. Thomas, is it? Or Little St. James. Little St. James. St. Thomas is the major island there. The Little St. James, there's Great James as well. Allegedly, he bought that as well. But the St. James Islands, part of the U.S. Virgin Islands, I guess also part of the Danish holdings that we bought from them, a couple of years passed between the purchase. I think it was in the post-World War I times, right around there that we ended up purchasing the islands from Denmark, maybe because they were under pressure for war expenses. I don't know. And then we got them, and then a number of years passed, 80 to 100, and it became a weirdo pervert island. Oh, well, not because we bought it from Denmark. That was our own fault. We had an American turn it into a pervert haven. Anyway, just pointing that out. By the way, over the weekend, also some news that they were considering some sort of special tax haven status for wealthy billionaires in Puerto Rico. You can move, businesses, assets, what have you, here, and we won't even tax you, or at least not very much. And you can stay within, technically, the United States, but move offshore and save lots of money on tax bills. It seemed like a good way. I'm sure they were worried about, the possible consequences, but they figured some tax revenue is better than none, maybe within the government of Puerto Rico. I just wanted to point out it doesn't always work out all that well, and that is why Jeffrey Epstein landed at Little St. James, why he moved his operation to the U.S. Virgin Islands after having purchased it from Denmark. Huge tax savings. And the great thing was you could plow those huge tax savings, at least partially, straight into bribery of the local government. And that's why you can make weird things like this work, not just parking your business there and saving millions of dollars in taxation, but having them also look the other way at a giant sex trafficking operation. So it pays for itself. That's one of the beauties of, unfortunately, of doing this sort of thing. Anyway, the real issue here is now we got to try and figure out whether Jeff Landry really is special envoy to Greenland, what that might entail, what it means, whether or not he gets paid. Does it make a difference? Is he still the governor of Louisiana? Does someone have standing to sue in Louisiana to say this guy is a federal official? He can't be the governor of Louisiana anymore. I don't know. Someone, by the way, answers Andy Craig, who supposes that this might be the punchline to a long-running and dumb joke. But Capital Hunters here says the choice of Landry isn't random. Landry was a big helper to Trump in 2020, I'm sure. Trump tried to make him special counsel to investigate election fraud at some point. I didn't realize that, i.e. to alter election results, but was told that he couldn't because of Louisiana law, and that's why Landry's volunteer language is here. I think they might think that saying it's a volunteer position means it works as a workaround. However, it shouldn't, but maybe you could get a Supreme Court, for instance, of the United States of America to say, yeah, it's fine. It's never worked before, but this time we'll say it's cool. All right. Well, it's unlikely to work out, and I guess, and at some point he'll say, all right, I'm not special envoy to Greenland anyway. So, it'll be interesting, to say the least. We'll follow those developments if there are any. All right. Other things from over the weekend. I thought I would make note of this when I saw the headline. Greg made mention of Elise Stefanik not, I think he made mention of not running for governor anymore up in New York. 2 more Republicans jump ship, according to the headline over at one of our faves, Crooks and Liars. I haven't cited them in a while, but they have the news that not only Stefanik saying she's giving up both her House seat and her attempt to run for governor, and joined in retirement from Congress by Senator Cynthia, is it Loomis or Lummis? What does she say? I don't know. From Wyoming. Now that's a long shot, open seat there, to say the least. Although, there's almost nobody out there in Wyoming. And if some, let's say 50,000 Democrats whose votes are certainly most welcome in most other states, but if you have a solid blue state there, you can probably, in California, let's say, if you took 50,000 Californians and transplanted them to Wyoming, you'd have a fair shot at capturing 2 Senate seats. It's pretty cheap. But, we don't do such things. Or, as other people have pointed out, if you had a high-speed rail line from Cheyenne, Wyoming to into Fort Collins in Colorado, such that people who worked in Colorado and were pretty solid Democrats could move out to where presumably housing is somewhat cheaper in Wyoming, but get to work in an hour via a high-speed rail line. Well, and they re-registered to vote in Wyoming, 2 Senate seats in the offing, and it might be worth trying. There's plenty of other places that are just like that as well out there. There's a good 6 to 8 Senate seats, which are in the hands of very, 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 very few Republican voters. Anyway, the real news here is that 2 more Republicans have said, to hell with this, we're out of here. And the good news really on this Elise Stefanik front is, this whole thing about throwing my lot in with Donald Trump has not worked out for me, and I can't wait to stop doing it. So there you go. Francis Langham, for our good pal, and author of the piece over at Crooks and Liars. Thanks, Francis, for bringing us up to date. It's unlikely that Wyoming would send a Democrat to the Senate, but in 2026, anything can happen. That's true. Maybe not that one thing in particular, but some other things could happen. I'm going to say good on Cynthia Lummis. I'm guessing. I've never really spoken to Senator whoever the hell that is, but, good on her for realizing it's okay to retire at age 71. That's true. Enjoy yourself, I suppose. So let's see. That's the news. Where are they grabbing it from? Local News 8, I guess one of the local stations up in Wyoming. They got, by the way, everyone in Wyoming has their own television station. It's really a very low population state. So there you go. She's retiring. And Elise Stefanik, let me just give you the commentary offered up here. Elise Stefanik is another story. She's not only running for re-election to Congress, she's also dropping out of the primary race for governor of New York. I think that's a good one. And she says, in taking Mark Jacobs' Blue Sky post on the subject, Mark Jacob, we've cited a number of times on the show, saying Elise Stefanik finds that enabling Trump's corruption and amplifying his hatred isn't the ticket to the top she thought it was. She really has seen her career crash. I mean, she was going to be handed the job of UN ambassador, right? And then that fell apart at some point, and I'm not entirely sure I remember why, but then she went back to the House having almost, or maybe she didn't resign. She didn't go back, but her plans changed. All right, I'm not going to be UN ambassador. That's never going to happen. I'll stay in the House. But she had already resigned from her leadership post in the Republican conference, and then they had to create a fake new post. This is something people do from time to time. She's not unique in that, but they had to make up a post and give her something to do. And then she found out, well, the conference is fractured, and also we have no control over it, and this job is fake and everybody knows it, and just a million reasons why this just is unsatisfying. But at least I can run for governor of New York and leave for that. But then as it turns out, no, there's really no chance of turning that into a real job either. So out she goes. So there you go. I don't know what else to tell you. All right. Well, thanks to Francis, who, by the way, you'll know as Blue Gal online for the most part as well. So, in case you were just wondering, who am I listening to? That's your answer. So I thought that commentary was important to put in there. Not just the news that she was leaving, but that, yeah, close observers will note that Elise Stefanik has for the moment anyway. I mean, you never know who's going to come back and when, but it certainly looks like you've completely destroyed your political career, which was all you ever wanted in life by most accounts. If you remember the history of how Elise Stefanik came to pollute our timelines, mentally pollute our timelines, and physically in many ways too, of course, as a member of Congress, probably loosened all sorts of environmental regulations that are actually polluting your immediate physical atmosphere. Okay, so 2 more names on that list. Let's see. Other things that I really thought I should. You know what? I had put this aside too, but Greg actually read this one. Was Julie Brown's Epstein Files Substack entrant. A lot of long reads that I got here, and we're up against the next break. So we can choose which of the long reads we will make our focus when we come back from the break. And let me get some of these other things out of the way here and try and clear the way for the next segment. But gosh, there's a lot and a lot of different directions we can go to. Anyway, I guess I got to ask you, did you get a chance to read the New York Times long read over the weekend? Maybe you spent your Epstein reading time on the redactions story, and redactions and non-redactions and warped ideas about redactions, etc. But if you did that and you didn't get a chance to read it, I want to remind you of the New York Times piece from prior to the weekend, Don's Best Friend, How Epstein and Trump Bonded Over the Pursuit of Women. essentially, I guess, really setting us up for the redactions and non-redactions and excuses and non-excuses that were going to be employed over the weekend for why they weren't really going to release whatever they had by way of Epstein Files. And the answer is, of course, that Donald Trump is all over them, and the things that we already know about him are damning as it is. And I guess they're going to just stand there and say, yeah, but we're not going to do anything about it because we control the courts and the Department of Justice. Well, that much we knew, but this was very revealing, I thought. You should take a look. Hi, everybody. It's me, David, still your host for the Kagro in the Morning Show after all these years. Thank you for all your continuing support for the show. And if you're listening regularly and still thinking about getting on board as a supporter, well, the time is now. Patreon.com is the easiest way to make recurring subscription-style payments every month, all year round, to keep us going. patreon.com/KagroX brings you to our page where you can sign up with your monthly support. And hey, have you seen our clever new subscription tiers? It's easier than ever to sign up for, say, $1 crisp bill for every information-packed 2-hour show. If you're the plan ahead type, there's even a year-long subscription program that saves you 15% on the cover price. Or it would if there was a cover price, or even a cover, for that matter. patreon.com/KAGROX. Thanks again for all your support. Alrighty, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Let's see what else I have to add to all of this here. Was there anything here in this piece I had put aside? Just, sometimes I just park things here to remind myself that they actually happened and make sure that I've got an entree into discussing it. And I put aside something from Yahoo News here. Oh, well, it's culled from The Guardian. The DOJ failed to comply with the Epstein Files law. Can Congress do anything? Just as an entree to discussing, I guess, inherent contempt. Although I think what was interesting about this was that they mostly don't discuss that as an option, which I think is, on the one hand, a little bit surprising. But then again, I'm used to people not knowing about that. It's sad when it's members of Congress. It's a little less sad when it's, I guess, journalists covering it, because nobody has seen inherent contempt happen for quite some time. So they tend to forget about it. I think it's still the case that inherent contempt has not actually been exercised since the 1930s, and I think for, like fallout from like Teapot Dome scandals, if you remember that terminology from like AP US history courses. But it's been quite some time, but we've mentioned it a number of times on the show. We dug it up back in 2007 or so. And I didn't make it up or anything. It's not like I invented the procedure, and it's not like I'm the only one who's ever discovered it either. I just, similar, I think, in this case to widespread discussion of the nuclear option, which I also did not invent, didn't name, wasn't the first to report on, none of those things. Just the extensive discussion, though, kind of got it into news coverage eventually, where people were saying, I don't know, my constituents are calling me, talking about this thing all the time. What is this crap? Let me find out about it. And I guess that's what sort of made it break through. And I think a similar thing happened with inherent contempt. Just as I mentioned at the time, chair of the House Oversight Committee, Henry Waxman, who was, a dogged investigator, no doubt about that, just really had never come in contact with the thing and just never heard of it because it's outmoded. I mean, most contempt of Congress, it was handled statutorily at the time because we had a functioning government and a government that was willing to hold itself to account if necessary. But when we sort of exited that era and Republican governance was all about getting their way and not actually, upholding the Constitution and enforcing the law, things began to change. But I guess the next opportunity or the next necessity for actually discussing the idea of congressional of Congress exercising inherent powers of contempt probably cropped up in the 1980s, which is some 50 years after the last usage of inherent contempt. And I think longtime listeners, longtime readers of Daily Kos who may actually remember this thing being discussed might remember that the next serious threat of inherent contempt came in the 1980s when one then known as Ann Gorsuch, the APA administrator, had that threatened against her because, of course, she was being subpoenaed by Congress in an ongoing investigation of what EPA was and wasn't doing, and were they living up to their mandate. And under the Reagan administration, they were not. And essentially, in refusing to comply with the subpoenas, she set up the question of whether or not she could be, one, prosecuted for contempt of Congress, and two, whether if the prosecution was, as the statutory scheme of the time and still existing statutory scheme had it, you would hand off prosecution to the local federal authorities. In this case, the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia would say, well, the subpoena was lawfully issued by the Congress. This person, Ann Gorsuch, has not complied with it. I'll prosecute that. It's black and white. It's, either there's a law or there isn't. But instead, at the dawn of the unitary executive theory, back in those days, they said, well, what if I, as the U.S. Attorney, let's say in this case, I exercise prosecutorial discretion and say I'm not going to bring a case against Ann Gorsuch because reasons. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons for it, but ultimately, we don't believe that this is what she ought to have been doing as EPA administrator anyway. So the fact that she's not doing it is good news. The fact that Congress wants to investigate it, that's fine. But if you want us to enforce your subpoena, no. We don't think that she should tell you what you're looking for, give you the documents you're looking for from the EPA. There's an executive reason for withholding them, which is we don't want you in our business. And so it was at that point that they realized, oh, well, that seems like a dumb scheme. It doesn't seem like a good check or balance against the power of the executive if the legislature can't enforce congressional subpoenas under the normal. If you can't do it statutorily, there must be some. Yes, as a matter of fact, there's precedent for it. Way back in the 1930s, the last time it was exercised, there's a inherent power in the Constitution setting us up with the inherent power to enforce our own subpoenas if necessary. And here's how it's done. And now that we have that in the offing, will you perhaps reach some sort of accommodation or settlement with us instead? This is now I remember why. For the past 50 years, we've never had to use this because we were able to pull it out, show it to people, and have them say, well, I'll tell you what, we'll come to an accommodation. Instead, we will, instead of fighting it out in court or allowing you to imprison us and figure it out whether or not that's legal and constitutional, we'll come to an agreement. And they always settled these things as between the two branches. 1980s was the first time that it really looked like they weren't going to be able to do it. But then eventually, remembering the inherent contempt power, they did come to a settlement. Isn't that something? Anyway, then we went happily on our way for some time until we landed in the George W. Bush administration, and a Democratic Congress was making serious demands for documentation and for answers from the administration, and they too said, hell with it, we're not going to prosecute contempt of Congress. And we had to remind members of Congress, nope, this power exists. And then that went away again. And now Republicans are having to do it. But against Donald Trump. They they knew about it. Republicans knew about it because they were attempting to use inherent contempt against Obama administration officials, Biden administration officials. They did well. You're the one who brought it up against George W. Bush. So thanks for the reminder. Yeah, I know. Go ahead. You could give it a try. And you didn't get anywhere with it. That's your problem. In the meantime, now Republicans couldn't make it work all by themselves against Democrats. Democrats couldn't make it work all by themselves against Republicans. And now we'll find out whether Democrats and Republicans can combine forces to use it against someone like Donald Trump, who's, I guess, just bad enough and scary enough that he's offending members of his own party when he's got an extremely narrow majority in Congress. And you may end up, exercising inherent contempt after all. Although, they may not do it because they don't know what kind of response that will provoke from an irresponsible, dictatorial lout like Donald Trump. It may be that they become convinced that the effort to enforce inherent contempt against a Trump administration employee will lead to gunplay of some kind and opt instead not to do it. I guess we'll just have to wait and see how they decide to make this work. All right. Let's see. What other items did I have here for consideration? This one, let me see. Does this fit? Are we going to segue into this or not? I guess not, because apparently I can't. I don't know. I got a tip. Maybe if I follow the original email from or a Daily Kos based email from our correspondent there, SF Bay Transplant, who very frequently is making great suggestions about what to take a look at, has sent me to something from Facebook. Yeah, here we go. Right. Okay. Well, why not? We'll put this on the record too. I hadn't heard about this story, and maybe I can go in search of some links to it. But this one is from a Facebook entry from Rachel Hurley, with whom I am not familiar. And she notes, by the way, in another comment on this story, that she has been demonetized by Facebook and was looking for donations to keep her operation afloat. I note that because sometimes the demonetization by Facebook is a fun badge of honor, but sometimes it's also, maybe they're onto something here, and I'm not certain about the sourcing of all of this, but this is a story that look, either the sourcing is out there or it isn't. This is would be happening right in front of everybody. So I'm inclined to believe that this is what's going on here. She says, I was just about to, and of course it's being recommended to us by SF Bay Transplant. That helps a lot too. I was just about to go to bed, she says, when I read that the Federal Reserve, you remember them? Just pulled off one of the smoothest institutional counter moves in recent memory. Here, she says, is what happened. On December 11th, the Fed Board of Governors unanimously voted to reappoint 11 of its 12 regional bank presidents to new 5-year terms. The only exception was with the Atlanta Fed president, who had already announced his retirement, Raphael Bostic. Okay. This would normally be the most boring procedural news imaginable, and that's good for this show. Regional bank presidents get reappointed all the time. Their terms were set to expire in February anyway. The Fed typically waits until much closer to the deadline to handle this stuff, but this wasn't typical. The reappointment came weeks early, and it came just 8 days, like Hanukkah, 8 days after Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent publicly floated a plan, this I did hear about, to veto any regional Fed president who hadn't lived in their district that they oversee for the Fed, right? If they hadn't lived in that area for at least 3 years. I mean, it seemed like a weird procedural trick, but not unlike, for instance, mandating, as they did in Oklahoma, well, we're going to buy Bibles for the school districts, but these Bibles have to also have the Constitution in them. And there's only one Bible that does that. Well, it turns out there's a second one, but Donald Trump's fits the bill. All right. Well, it may be that the short list for regional Fed presidents are full of nominees that we don't want and who haven't lived in this district for at least 3 years. Anyway, he named names at the New York Times Deal Book Summit. 3 or 4 current presidents, he said, had ties to New York. The implication was clear. The administration wanted leverage over these positions when reappointments came due in February. So then quietly, the Fed moved first. The vote was unanimous, like over at the Kennedy Center. Wink, wink. Anyway, that includes all 3 Trump-appointed governors on the Fed board, Stephen Miran, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Michelle Bowman, and Christopher Waller. Miran, M-I-R-A-N, is perhaps the most interesting name on the list. He's on temporary leave from his job as chair of Trump's Council of Economic Advisors while he serves on the Fed board, another person with 2, 3, 5, 10 jobs. Before joining the administration, he co-authored a paper calling for sweeping changes to reduce Fed independence, including giving the president at-will power to fire Fed board members and bank presidents. J.P. Morgan analysts warned that his appointment fuels an existential threat to the Federal Reserve Act. And yet Miran voted to reappoint all 11 regional presidents. The University of Michigan economist Justin Wolfers, we know that guy, put it bluntly on X, though you should put it elsewhere. If I'm reading this properly, they just Trump-proofed the Fed. Hooray! If they did that, by the way. The regional presidents matter because they aren't just ceremonial figures. The New York Fed president has a permanent vote on the Federal Open Market Committee, which sets interest rates. 4 other regional presidents rotate into voting positions each year. Together with the 7 governors, they form the rate-setting body that Trump has been screaming about for months. He wants lower rates. Many of these regional presidents have been arguing against further cuts. 8 of the 12, by some estimates, were skeptical of even modest reductions. Robert Eisenbeis, if I'm pronouncing that one correctly, Eisenbeis, former director of research at the Atlanta Fed, told Fortune magazine the reappointments take a risk off the table. Huzzah! That Trump or his choice for a new Fed chair might disrupt the structure and governance of the system going into 2026. The terms that they were just reappointed to now run through 2031. The bond market noticed immediately. Deutsche Bank strategist Jim Reed pointed out that 10-year Treasury yields edged higher after the announcement, as investors priced in fewer expected rate cuts. The market read it as a signal that the Fed's policy direction was now structurally insulated from political pressure, at least on the regional level. Powell's term as chair still expires in May, and Trump can name his replacement. Kevin Hassett and Kevin Warsh, only people named Kevin apparently, are reportedly on that short list. But whoever takes that seat will face a voting bloc of regional presidents who just got locked in for half a decade. Even if the new chair wants aggressive rate cuts, they can't simply outvote the rest of the committee. Oh, well, allegedly. The Fed operates by consensus, supposedly, and that consensus now extends through 2031, unless, of course, the Supreme Court says it doesn't. There's a legal question hovering over all of this. A 2019 Justice Department opinion suggested the Board of Governors might be able to remove regional bank presidents at will. Now, that may or may not be covered by the indications we've gotten from the Supreme Court before that the Fed was somehow immune to what they believe is the president's power to replace everybody, anywhere, at will. But we'll see. It's never been tested in court. The Federal Reserve Act uses the word cause in one section, i.e. removal for cause, implying that removal requires justification, while another section says directors can dismiss officers at pleasure. The ambiguity was always there, but with fresh 5-year terms now in place, any attempt to remove these presidents would face immediate legal challenges and market chaos. Chaos. What's remarkable is how little fanfare accompanied this move. No dramatic press conference, no leaked battle plans, just a press release on Thursday afternoon, December 11th, noting the unanimous concurrence of all 7 governors. The regional bank boards conducted their reviews. The Washington board approved. Done. Compare that to the chaos of the past year. Trump tried to fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook in August over allegations of mortgage fraud that she denied and that documents appear to contradict. A federal judge blocked the firing. The Supreme Court will consider whether Trump can remove governors at will. Meanwhile, Trump has called Powell a knucklehead and a numbskull, visited the Fed's renovation project to highlight cost overruns, and generally treated the central bank like a punching bag. Against all that noise, the reappointment vote slipped through with almost no resistance. The Trump-appointed governors who might have objected instead signed off. The timing suggests coordination, though no one has publicly admitted as much. Fed officials don't tend to explain their strategic thinking in press releases. The whole episode is a case study in how institutions defend themselves, not through public confrontation or dramatic resignations, but through quiet procedural moves that foreclose future options. By the time Besant's residency rule could even be implemented, the position it was designed to influence were already filled for the next 5 years. Sometimes the most effective resistance looks like paperwork, and that's why San Francisco Bay Transplant sent it to me. Trump and paperwork, man. I'm telling you. Well, I guess there's ways to beat him to the punch on things like that. Let me see about that. Regional Fed presidents and whether or not there is some recent news. Let's see. Besant plans to push residency requirement. We saw that, but some 3 weeks ago. There we are. Fed votes to reappoint all of its regional bank presidents right there at CNBC. Axios has got the same news. That part of the story is all pretty solid, and I think it's pretty fair speculation that we read, even though it was on Facebook and on a page from a person that I didn't recognize. I don't know, they seem to have gotten it right, if you ask me. That's a very plausible story behind the story. And I haven't seen much discussion of that. That's true. So thanks for pointing that one out. I think that was good use of our time for our last segment there. I know there's a lot of long reads out there that deserve some time. And I'm sure we'll get to that later on in the week. And after all, it is a holiday week, and I got to start thinking about what are we going to serve you on Thursday. If you're even interested in hearing something on Thursday, maybe you'd just rather gather around the Yule log or the virtual Yule log on television. All right. How about another quick hit here along the way before we dive into something we definitely won't have time for? Just going to update you on what's happening. Politico has this story. Nothing has changed. The status quo remains the same, but you should know that, yes, the DOJ is, in fact, appealing that lower court ruling that, as they say here in the headline, tanked the Comey and James criminal cases. The Justice Department is challenging the dismissal of prosecutor Lindsay Halligan. Okay, sure, fine. Kyle Cheney let us know this was happening on Friday. This was a late evening entry, but the Justice Department is appealing the ruling that resulted in the dismissal of criminal charges against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. The appeal, lodged in both cases, challenges a judge's finding that the lead prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, was illegally appointed to her position. Well, she was. Attorney General Pam Bondi, at President Donald Trump's urging, we're now using that, urging. Orders? No, urging. Appointed Halligan in September as interim U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia. Halligan, a former personal attorney to Trump with no prosecutorial experience, secured criminal charges, well, quote-unquote secured, criminal charges against Comey and James within days, but U.S. District Judge Cameron Curry concluded, that's a lot of alliteration here, that Halligan should never have been in the role in the first place because her predecessor, Eric Siebert, had already filled the interim position for a legal maximum of 120 days. And because Halligan was the only prosecutor who signed the Comey and James indictments, Curry concluded that those indictments were defective and had to be tossed. Comey was indicted in late September on charges that he lied to Congress in 2020 during a hearing related to the FBI's investigation of the 2016 Trump campaign's contacts with Russia. James was charged with mortgage fraud, again, another one of those mortgage fraud charges, related to a property she purchased in Virginia. Both pleaded not guilty. Both noted they were indicted by Halligan just days after Trump demanded that his Justice Department, quickly bring charges against his political adversaries. The decision to appeal followed two failed efforts by Justice Department prosecutors to re-indict James, extraordinary rebukes by grand juries amid widespread indications that the charges against Comey and James were driven by Trump's personal animus against them for his own legal travails. Comey's case is more complicated to revive because he was initially indicted just days before the 5-year statute of limitations expired. His team contends that the failure to bring a valid indictment by the deadline suggests that he can no longer be charged. You knew that, of course, but just a refresher. And, I guess we had to figure they were going to try to appeal it. Whether they really have any leg to stand on remains to be seen. But I guess in this day and age, it now depends on who is on the appeals court panel that they draw. If there are enough Trump appointees on it, they'll pretend that they think they see a case. And if there aren't, well, then the dismissal will be upheld and they'll appeal immediately to the Supreme Court instead. Very, petty case here. It was stupid to try to bring charges against either of them anyway. It'll have zero consequences either way. I mean, it will for them if they're charged. It's absurd. And hopefully, people remain cool and calm and keep their heads and just say, even among the Supreme Court members saying this is just, not a hill to die on. It doesn't make any sense. These things don't need to happen in order to preserve our power. So let's not do it. But, I don't know. Who knows what kind of crazy nonsense they have to hold against members of the Supreme Court. All right. Let's see. So I think that probably does it for the short observations and other stories that I think we can work in before the conclusion of today's show. However, lots more stuff to go. And this leaves us with the really difficult position of having a few minutes, like literally just 2 minutes left, and just, not wanting to start off down the road on anything new here. And I'm just not sure. I'm scrolling around looking for like random short. Here's one. Okay, one random short story. I knew there had to be at least one within scrolling distance here from Mediaite. Over the break. So on Saturday, I saw this one, Saturday evening. Trump ambassador, since we were on those stories, Trump ambassador Mike Huckabee, he's of course in Israel. Guess what? He held a secret meeting, it says here, the headline, secret meeting with traitor, not Marjorie Trader Green, but another traitor, who sold American secrets to Israel, says Charlie Nash of Mediaite. And there aren't that many. So you could probably guess, if you have any sense of the history of this, that it is Jonathan Pollard, which is kind of an amazing thing. And, we'll sneak it in. President Donald Trump's ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, held a secret meeting in July with traitor Jonathan Pollard, who served 30 years in prison for selling American secrets to Israel. This is kind of an extraordinary thing for an Israeli ambassador to be doing. According to a report from the New York Times, Pollard met with Huckabee at the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem in July for a discussion that was kept off Mr. Huckabee's official schedule, it quotes from the New York Times, and revealed for the first time on Thursday. This past Thursday, Pollard confirmed the rendezvous in an interview with the Times, telling the newspaper it was a friendly meeting and that a lot of things came up in conversation, I can imagine. And in his interview with the Times, Pollard also attacked President Trump, which seems like it makes this story even weirder, calling him, he's right, a madman who has literally sold us down the drain for Saudi gold. How did you get a meeting with Mike Huckabee? after this, or maybe while this is happening. Huckabee's senior advisor, David Milstein, the stepson of Fox News host Mike Levin, was reportedly present at the meeting, which is also kind of bizarre in its own right. 3 unnamed officials told the New York Times that the meeting, quote, alarmed the Central Intelligence Agency's station chief in Israel. The White House was also reportedly unaware that the secret meeting was taking place. What a freelance thing to do. Very weird. The White House was not aware of the meeting in advance, according to the White House official, and 2 people briefed on the matter reported the Times. The White House official also said that senior officials there were alarmed when they learned that it had taken place. Pollard, a former U.S. intelligence analyst, was sentenced to life in prison in 1987 after it was discovered that he had been selling American secrets to Israel, including the names of thousands of U.S. intelligence agency sources. Pollard was released from prison in 2015 and moved to Israel in 2020, flying on a private jet owned by top Trump donor Sheldon Adelson. Flown to Tel Aviv, where he was given a hero's welcome by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This is a tangled web, folks. In 2021, Trump pardoned Avim Sela, the Israeli handler who recruited Pollard to spy on the United States. I don't know who knows what's going on here or why. It can't, you would think, be that Mike Huckabee would totally freelance this. But is it just, it leaked, now we're going to be upset about it? Or is it we really didn't know to begin with? The left hand could not know what this right hand is doing, folks.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, well, we'll see whether there's any breaking news that helps us make sense of this. In the meantime, how about breaking news? How about breaking some bread and some news with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Next, right here on Netroots Radio, Justice Putnam will take you through his read on the day's events, starting, of course, with Pam Bondi's DOJ deceiving the court to hide stuff from all of us. Todd Blanche's hand in all of this next.